Now, I know we're going to disagree on some things on this show, but I got two Texans homers in the crowd and I got two best ball players. Can we all agree that in a 12 by 11 best ball league, we're going to send away Malik Nabers for Nico Collins, Cam Skattebo, that boy, and a 2026 first? Gabe, tell me I'm wrong.
Oh, man. I can't tell you I'm wrong. I can't tell you you're wrong at all.
And Cody, give it to me straight.
I like free stuff, and this is a lot of free stuff for me.
Excellent. Let's talk about it.
You got barbecue back there, and you didn't invite me. Hurt my feelings.
Welcome in, everyone. I'm Ty at Ty Declare 44. That's Gabe at iGabe_FF. And that's Cody at Cody Smith, TFDR. This is a three-way episode of the All Gas Trade Show. Welcome in, everyone. DDFFB popping in these streets. Boys, happy Saturday. Gabe, how you doing?
Doing great, buddy. Doing great. Excited to have our first three-way show here with Cody. So definitely something to look forward to today. How about you guys?
I'm doing good. Cody, you living?
Oh, we're living and vibing right now. Yeah, caffeine run all the way through on this Saturday morning as we're recording, and good to be on again.
Hell yeah. Cody got a haircut. Gabe's not on an airplane. I still haven't cut my hair at all. So All Gas Trade Show flying this morning. Happy Saturday, everyone. Hope you're doing well. First and foremost, if you're not in the DDFFB community, now is a great time. Head on over to ddfantasyfootball.com. Use code TRADES or TRADEGOAT. Get 50% off your first month of the All Conference Plus Discord tier or the GOAT tier. We're going to use some of the tools in the show today. So we got a little example of how we can get your Dynasty teams right with the DDFFB tools. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment on all the DDFFB content dropping damn near daily at this point. We got you. We got Mitch, Dan, JB, Scott, Shane, right? Everyone's dropping content on here. So make sure you keep up. Underdog, now's the time. Use code ALLGAS at sign up. Get your special pick and up to 1K in bonus cash. And of course, tried and true, patreon.com/allgas. Boys, I feel like I cut my Dynasty teeth in the streets with y'all in voice chat, learning, and just kind of like growing how I play as a Dynasty manager. And we play in a lot of best ball leagues. And man, let me tell you, if I'm in a league 12 by 11, some boosted scoring, I love Malik Nabers. I think Malik Nabers is the best player in this deal, but there's levels to this. And I mean, some will see Nico Collins in the same tier as Malik Nabers. And like you said, Cody, you get some free stuff added in. This is a great best ball deal. I'm curious how anyone would feel even in lineup, if there's a lineup league. But Cody, I want to kick it to you here. Where's Malik Nabers and Nico Collins in your mind? And then just how do you break down this deal in full?
Yeah, they're same tier for me. However, if I go by my rankings that I built over the past couple of weeks in the offseason, I have Nico Collins over Malik Nabers just because of a quarterback kind of question mark. And I don't really care about the age factor whenever the wide receivers are this young. So you're legitimately giving me free stuff because I would do it straight up. And then you're going to give me a running back that I really like in Cam, and you're going to give me a first on top of it. This is a regardless of format trade for me. Smash auto accept.
Oh, Gabe, come on, baby. Give it to
Dude, I love the conviction of Cody Smith over here, man. Again, hey, you mentioned that we had two Texan homers right on this show, and he did not disappoint with that trade at all right off the get-go. No, I think for me, I do have Malik Nabers slightly ahead just from a youth aspect of it. But again, they're in the same tier for me, right? So it's kind of like interchangeable within the tier. That being said, I agree with Cody. There's a lot of question marks with the Giants quarterback situation. I do think they're going to address that here in this offseason, right? They have no choice but to do that. And so I do think that Malik Nabers will kind of stay where he's at in that tier, slightly above Nico Collins. But that being said, man, I mean, Cam and a 26 first, like that is a massive, get, if you will, of free stuff to Cody's point. So I am all for Nico Collins, Cam, and a 26 first for Malik Nabers, especially in a best ball league.
Yeah. Unless we're playing in like an 8-team start 7 league, like maybe I wouldn't do something a part of this deal. But if you just give me a 26 first with Nico, like I'm going to take that side, and then you just give me Cam Skattebo, like that's real nice. So we're all on the same page. This deal is a smash here for the Nico side. I just want to pull this up. Let me see here. So I bought some Trinity pulled up here. This is weeks 1 through 17 for the New York Football Giants. Malik Nabers, whole season just smashed. Clearly a 8.38, just well above. I mean, when Wan'Dale Robinson is the closest competition for you, it's something else. To end the year, weeks 10 through 17, Malik Nabers still didn't change, right? Just up there. Let's head over to Houston really quick. I'll pull up weeks 1 through 17. And remember, Nico had that hot start to the season. Whole season wise, 7.73, still awesome. Wide receiver 1 usage, right? Close to elite. He had that stretch in the middle where he was hurt, and then the whole offense just kind of started to fall apart. But even when that happened, y'all saw it. Nico Collins, right? 3.79. Now, I wish that Nico would have done a little more with the opportunity that he had, honestly. I know Gabe and I were watching that game when he came back, and it was like 70+ yard screen to the house that got called back, and we're like, it just always felt like there was that one play that was missing. So I don't know. Like, do you expect, if you have Nico Collins, like, I know you're Houston Texans fans, like, in general, are you trying to acquire more Nico? Are you trying to move some Nico based on his value? Like, how Gabe, I'll start with you. Like, how are you approaching Nico?
No, man, I think Nico is kind of what he is right at this point. And I still think he's a little maybe undervalued, if I'm being completely honest with you. Again, right now I'm looking at some of the rankings here, and he's wide receiver 8. And if we're mentioning that he's in the same tier as Malik Nabers is wide receiver 3. So there's a big gap, right? I mean, you've got guys like Drake London, Puka Nacua, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Brian Thomas Jr., all a little bit either right there with him or slightly above Nico Collins. And I would take Nico Collins, man, over a couple of those guys already as it is. And then I know that the Texans just got Christian Kirk, and, depending on how you view the situation, I think it actually opened up the offense, man. I think Nico was better when he had Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell playing, right? It opened up the offense for him a little bit more to be able to do more in the offense. To your point, man, it got really difficult for Nico Collins just because he was literally the only player on the field. I mean, quite literally, he was the only wide receiver worth anything on the field for the Texans at the end of the year. And so, I mean, dude, if you're getting double, triple coverage, like, what do you expect this man to do, right? So I think with Christian Kirk signing now, I think it'll really open up the offense.
Yeah, for sure. Cody, you see that any differently? And then, like, what are you doing with Nico?
No, definitely. I'm in the acquiring Nico stage. And I mean, even more so to the fact, like, you kicked out your OC, you bring in Nick Caley over from the Rams system. You're going to have an overworked offensive line throughout this offseason. They haven't really started that yet, but they're going to make additions to that offensive line to shore that thing up. And to the point that Gabe was mentioning, you bring in a Christian Kirk, obviously, whenever you're running out Jared Wayne and Xavier Hutchinson and John Mechie as your wide receiver 2, 3, 4, you can only focus on Nico, and that's going to shut him down a little bit. So yeah, you open up the offense a little bit more. I think things will be back up on the other side for the Texans this year, and that's just not the homer take in me. That's just a little bit of a bounce back from what we saw of the collapse whenever we had the really bad offensive play calling and scheme and everything that was happening last year. And then the injuries were just piling up too. Love me some Nico Collins and would definitely go buy, especially if I can get these type of prices.
Yeah. I'm looking at John Bauer's tiers right now. Nico Collins is tiered in the same group with Amon-Ra, CD, Puka, Nabers, and Brian Thomas Jr. Looking at startup,
and he's probably
data,
the cheapest one out of all those guys.
Probably. I was just going to say, like, I'm looking at startup data here. I see, so in order of ADP, Malik and CD round 1, Amon-Ra, Puka, BTJ early round 2, Nico kind of mid to late round 2. So if you're convicted on Nico like that, I mean, hell, if you have one of those late first in a startup and you still want to stay in that range of wide receiver, trade back to the second. Can you get a Cam Skattebo at a 26 first worth of value? Because I'd do that every damn day. Cody, give me 30 seconds. Cam Skattebo jumped high, didn't really jump far, didn't run. People like him. He's thick. I don't know. What are your takes on Cam Skattebo real quick?
People like him, people hate him. It feels like one of the most divisive players in this rookie draft season right now. However, I am definitely more so on the like side. He's either running back 5, running back 6 for me. It kind of floats depending upon how I wake up that morning. But pass catching wise, like, I don't understand how you get to the point of disliking this dude. The film guys, whenever you look at just purely the film, he's running through people constantly. I'm not saying that he's running through tackles. No, he's running through their chest and going over top of them as he stands over them for 2 seconds, and then he's bursting off. Yes, he might have a little bit. He's maybe not the most athletic guy. He's not going to run as fast as Travion Henderson. Look, I don't care. I like the guys like the Bucky Irvings and the Kyron Williams of the last couple of years, and he's even better. Then you look at a production status. I know he doesn't have his early breakout age, but in this modern day of the college football landscape as it is currently right now, I don't care about your early breakout age. Neither do the NFL teams as they've shown us over the past couple of years. Absolutely love some Cam Skattebo. He's able to pass catch out of the backfield as well, really, really well, an underrated part of his game. Love me some Cam.
Hell yeah. Gabe, anything else on that one?
No, man, not at all. I don't think I could have said that any better. And again, in a best ball league where you don't have to actively start him, I mean, it's give me all the Cam I can get.
Definitely. Cool. Hey, good start. All right, well, you failed me. We'll see how we do on this one. 12 teams, start 11, Superflex, PPR, 0.5, tight end premium. Their quarterbacks are now Kyler, Geno, and Carr. That sounds like a Cody room minus the Kyler. I have 101 and 104 in the draft. Spent last year rebuilding. Should be a mid-level team this year, but wanted to get some more assets to play with as before the draft. Had to get off Deebo, who wasn't valued in this league before the trade. Acquired him for a single third at the deadline, and don't believe in him. Just thought I could flip him for more than I bought him for. So you failed me. Sends away Deebo Samuel and Dak Prescott. He gets back the newly minted Raiders quarterback Geno Smith, Jerome Ford, a 26 second, the 211, and a 308. Gabe, I'm going to start with you here. Geno now is a Raider, back with Pete Carroll. I loved. I when I saw that, I was like, cool. Brock Bowers, awesome, love that. Give me
Jacoby Myers, wheels up, Jacoby Myers.
Go. Yeah, whoever they sign or draft, wheels up, yay. How do you feel about Geno now? Like, does your opinion on Geno change at all with this move? And how do you feel about this move in a 12 by 11 Superflex PPR, trading away Dak to Geno, sending Deebo away for some picks and Ford? Like, how do you feel there?
Yeah, I mean, I can understand, right, where you filled me's coming from. I mean, again, to your first question, like about Geno going to the Raiders now, I don't know, man. It really doesn't change much for me, right? Like, I think he's still going to be just probably a steady Eddie producer for you in fantasy. I don't think he's going to be a top, 5 QB in the league, top 10 QB in the league with this change, right? I do think, again, he's going to be just a steady Eddie, what he's been over the past couple of years. So that being said, I mean, I'm going to take Dak for sure over Geno. And even if you add one of those seconds in, I'm still going to take Dak just based on what I know. And then we kind of look at Deebo. I like the signing for Washington with Deebo. Again, I think he's definitely going to get a lot of opportunity. I think I heard ARich in one of the shows earlier this week just mentioning that Washington does a lot of screenplays and different things like that. And so I do think that there's a lot of opportunity for Deebo. And I do think that it'll open up the offense for Terry McLaurin as well. So I think it's a good move for Washington just as a whole, if you will. I like Jerome Ford. I mean, who knows, right? What's going to happen? I would imagine that Cleveland will probably address running back in the offseason, if I had to guess, especially with Nick Chubb. Like, who knows what's going to happen there, obviously, with his injury and whatnot. And so, I mean, it just sounds like, and again, y'all can correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like You Failed Me just kind of got a lot of noise in this trade. I feel like he gave up the best asset in the deal, right, with Dak. I do think I like Deebo. I still think there's some potential. Obviously, he hasn't looked like he's been a shell of himself lately. He's looked like he's been a shell of himself lately, but it just feels like a lot of noise, man, that I'm getting back on the other side.
There definitely isn't a premium asset. Kind of both sides don't really have a premium asset, right? So
correct.
I mean, if your league tells you that the market for Deebo was a third in season, I mean, to trade him away in March for, even if you're saying the 308 is Deebo, right? And then you're getting Geno 2 seconds and Ford for Dak. Like, I can kind of see that piece. But I mean, Cody, let me know here. What are we thinking?
Yeah, it's an interesting deal just because it's like you're probably down tiering at every spot on the receive side here for You Failed Me. However, at quarterback, whenever I'm dealing with that like quarterback to flat landscape, truthfully, what's your conviction level that Dak Prescott is even going to outproduce Geno Smith year to year anymore? And they're both on the other side of 30 now, so I'm not really putting too much of a separation there. So like, if you even give me probably just any of those second round picks, I'd probably take the down tier there. And then you look at Deebo Samuel. Obviously the Dynasty community is down on him, but then you do pair him up with JD5, and he's gotten a little bit of a resurgence here lately. So it just kind of depends if the rest of the junk here is worth a Deebo Samuel. And for me, I'll take the shot on just getting a couple of picks here. We'll see if Jerome Ford really has any value to him left after we get through the offseason, after we get through the draft. Right now, he's the RB1. I don't expect that to be what is the case week 1 of the actual NFL season for 2025. But I think there's enough stuff here that I would actually take the down tier. And whenever you're in a mid-level team rebuilding, as we are here, I think it's enough for me to just take the down tier, gather up a nice 2 for 5 in assets, even if it is a lineup.
Yeah, I mean, 2 for 12 by 11. It's one of those kind of fake deep leagues. Like, it's only until we get to like the start 12, start 13 that I really start to care about the depth and really trying to fill out for a 12 by 11. I still don't want to kind of like hold a bunch of mid, like late seconds, late thirds, but this is the season to do that. And this is the class where if I want to let other people make the decisions for me, if I can, like, I'll happily take the bottom of the tier. You take the player you want. I'll take what falls. Geno Smith, one of the faster paced offenses in Seattle, stays with his head coach and now goes to a Chip Kelly offense. So, we'll see if the pace of play continues there and what that means for Geno. I think Cody said it best, man. Like, week to week, Geno or Dak, who's going to outscore the other? I mean, if you had gun to my head, I'll say Dak, but I truly don't know. And if I have a team that, hey man, I spent last year rebuilding, just trying to kick away someone that I know my league doesn't value, and I can get some things that I can hopefully duct tape together and send into another deal. Sure, I'll take the 5 for 2, even in the 12 by 11. So, anything else on this one, boys?
No, I don't think so, man.
Yeah, good for me.
Cool. Okay, let's hop over to this one here. Bang. Jay Perocco, 12 team, start 11, PPR, shallow format. See what I mean? 12 by 11, shallow. They send away Drake London and Alvin Kamara, and they get back Marvin Harrison Jr. Gosh, that's very zoomed in. And Chris Olave. So again, 12 by 11, PPR. Cody, I like myself some Marvin Harrison. I've shied away from Chris Olave recently. I haven't tried to quote unquote buy the dip yet. Drake London, probably chronically underrated, but he hasn't really been supported in the offensive system or put that up. But maybe Penix is the answer. Who knows? Alvin Kamara, probably one of your most high rostered players in Dynasty. What are you doing here? Do you like Marv to London? How do you kind of balance that? And then how do you come down on this deal in total, Cody?
Yeah, I think Marv definitely has the upside to bounce back, and we'll see if that actually happens this year with Kyler Murray and in that Arizona offense. Obviously, I'm going to take Drake London straight up if I was to put those two back to back. So I do have a little bit of a gap there. I don't know how much that gap is for me personally, but I'd want probably somewhere in the second-ish type of range to probably make that jump up to a Drake London or down to a Marvin Harrison. And then I'm looking at a Chris Olave and Alvin Kamara. How many more years do we get out of Alvin Kamara? He's been one of the best running backs in fantasy football for the past 7 years, it feels like, and just criminally undervalued every single year as people keep trying to write him off, and he ain't writing back like a Geno Smith in the last deal. So then you just have to put him up against Chris Olave, who's unfortunately dealing with all of his concussions. There's been a lot of buzz around the draft circles that they might take a wide receiver high just because of the unknown and a new offensive scheme coming into that building right now. I'm going to lean Alvin Kamara and Drake London over here, though, just because of the concerns that I have with Chris Olave and how much of the gap there is for me personally between Drake London and Marvin Harrison. The gap between Chris Olave, Alvin Kamara doesn't exactly make that up for me. I don't know, Gabe, do you feel any differently on this one? I know that you can lean into a little bit more of those win now teams and push in. I think this is kind of what we're seeing here. There's the upside potentially with the receives, but I think I'd take the Sens personally.
Yeah, man. I mean, I can't disagree. I was going to say death, taxes, and Cody having veteran players on his dynasty rosters, right? So, no, I agree. I do think that Drake London and Marvin Harrison are very close as far as like tiers go. I do have Drake London slightly ahead of Marvin Harrison, to your point. I don't know if that gap is a second, but I could definitely appreciate, again, getting a second or giving away a second there to either go up or down in that tier. That being said, though, I agree, man. Alvin Kamara, like, he is one of those guys that he just consistently produces for us, man, year over year. I like Chris Olave, and I've been on the show before a couple times, like mentioning that I'm actively looking to buy Chris Olave because I do think there are better days ahead. Again, we don't know what the QB situation looks like. There's going to be obviously a new front office there with them. And so there's a lot of things that I do believe that I can kind of talk myself into wanting to acquire more Chris Olave, especially for his price right now. I feel like it's definitely a little bit depleted. But I mean, what did Alvin Kamara finish last year? He was definitely an RB1. I mean, where like it had to have been somewhere in the top like half of that. And so for that, I mean, I'm going to keep riding Alvin Kamara, man, until I can no more. So yeah, I agree with you, Cody.
Yeah. Really interesting because I'm looking at some startup ADP right now. Drake London, player 25, Marvin Harrison, player 26. So back to back right now.
Yep.
JB's dynasty tiers. He has Marvin Harrison tiered above Drake London. But the cool part about JB's tier is like he has the picks kind of worked in. And there's just really like kind of messy middle range between where 101 is, kind of everything else, and then 102 and below. So London's in that kind of messy middle range. So I think that's where there's probably some edges. If you have conviction on a player like one over the other, there is some edge to gain there. So, I mean, yeah, if you see Drake London as an upgrade over Marv, then you're like, yeah, just give me the running back who will probably keep producing until he doesn't over, I'll call a headache, pun intended, I guess, on Olave. I agree, Gabe. Like, I think now is probably a great time to buy into Chris Olave. I think Chris Olave has the runway, if you wanted to play the long-term game, where Marv and Olave could have the bounce back to be the side that you want at the end of the day. But the way that I want to play in a 12 by 11, I just kind of want to cut out that middle hopeful range of wide receiver if I can. I want to get into the 20-plus point per game kind of ceiling guys. And I think Marv and London both fall in that. I don't think Olave does. And I would rather take Olave and trade him into Jacoby Myers and something else. And, oh, God. Well, I spilled water everywhere, so we'll see if I cut out here. But, yeah, I think I'm going to take I'm going to take Drake and AK here as well. But I think it's a pretty close deal just based on pure kind of value. But I'm curious what you can do with Olave in your leagues.
Man.
Anything else there, Gabe?
No, I mean, I was just going to say, I don't know that you can do much with Olave right now in your leagues. I feel like he's one of those guys where you have to kind of package him together to kind of move him, and which is why I've definitely been on the show basically saying that I'm looking to buy him, right? Like if you're willing to add him in a deal and I have to give you, a second or two, like I'm definitely happy to do something like that, right? Where I can get a Chris Olave in the deal.
Definitely. And I know Cody is doing everything that he can to just get more and more veteran running backs on his squad. So that is great.
Perfect time for it. Perfect time to do it.
Yeah. So this is a cool time in the Dynasty calendar where a lot of these teams who some sickos have these drafts before the NFL draft. I've been in a couple of these leagues. I feel like I'm not great at it. I drafted Malik Willis 101 before the NFL draft in that year, and that didn't turn out very well.
Matt Corral, QB2.
Yeah, exactly. Aloha Panda in an 8-team start 12 lineup, full PPR 0.75. He's sending away the 105. It's a shallow league, but essentially it's a flat tier from 105 to 109 to 110. Also has 102, 101, 102, and 104. We're going to be looking at a lot of deals here after this deal where we talk about drafts before the NFL draft. This one is not, but it's an 8-team league. So 105 for essentially, the 109, 110. Gabe, we're sitting here after the combine.
Yeah.
105. I feel like those early first round picks maybe became a little more cemented, but you also feel great about your options at the end of the first. 8-team start 12. I'm not in any leagues like that. So what's that? Like a 10-team start 10, a 12-team start 8, essentially.
Yeah.
So pretty shallow. Are you consolidating to get up to 105? Or are you taking kind of the 109, 110 approach in this class?
No, man. I mean, I'm looking at like the ADP for rookies right now. And I mean, you're looking at Travion Henderson, Omarion Hampton, and Emeka Egbuka right there at that 105 spot. I mean, I'd be more than happy to kick the can down the road and get myself into a Quinshon Judkins, Caleb Johnson, Matthew Golden type. Like, I'd be more than happy with down tier and giving me the 2-for-1 here. Because again, I think right at that 104 is where you kind of get off of like the cemented guys, to your point, and it's a little bit a flatter of a tier. So I'd be more than happy to down tier the 105 if I can for 2 later first round picks right now.
And Cody, in a shallow league, like standard advice would be to try to consolidate, climb the ladder, get the hammers. But in this class, Cody, are you leaning a different way? Are you trying to take the 109, 110, or are you trying to climb up?
Yeah, trying to wrap my brain around the fact that the 201 is actually the 109 is definitely a throw for me. 8 teams certainly puts a little bit of a spin on it. And yeah, typically we are going for that hammer hunting type of season whenever we're looking for that. But to your point that y'all have made, 105, there is definitely a drop off for me there. You're starting to look into maybe you go a quarterback, maybe you start to even see like a tight end with a 7.5 premium. But I have enough guys that I personally like more than consensus that will probably fall down to that range, to where it goes again. He even says it, I know it's a shallow league, but that flat tier is enough of a flat tier for me at this current point that we're sitting in right now. If we're doing this in early March, I agree with it. I'll actually take the tier down, and it goes against everything that's been built into my brain, but I think it works here.
Got you. Because I'm thinking too, like in an 8-team league, the quarterback scarcity shouldn't be there. Start 12. So I mean, 0.75 tight end premium. I'm interested to see kind of what the tight end market is in there, but I feel like those early firsts are going to be more of the skill players that probably people are coveting or hoping fall down the board. Like I could see Judkins probably be in that 104, 105 range here. If you had like a Cam Ward or even a Shador Sanders like fall to 109, 110, is this the kind of league that you feel like you're using those picks to get the quarterback, or are you kind of passing that up in the format and trying to lean more into the skill players that we have?
I think, I was going to say, I mean, it really just kind of depends, right? Again, what my team looks like, but if I need to, I'm definitely happy to take shots on those guys. To your point, one, I don't even know if this is a super flex league. It doesn't state anything about super flex. And so one, you already mentioned the not QB scarcity in a 8-team league. I mean, you have, if it is a super flex league, we have 16 starters. So there's plenty of depth, right? Out probably on people's benches. And so you can definitely get quarterbacks probably pretty easily. So ideally, I'd love to try to go for a skill position player, but I'd be more than happy to take a shot on a Cam Ward, like with that 109, if I really need a quarterback.
Because I feel like I'm almost playing this more like a one quarterback, honestly. Like 16 starters. There's plenty of guys I can find and trade for in season when I need them. I mean, Cody, like, how are you approaching that?
Yeah, I don't even know personally even if these guys go 101 to the Titans or they go in the top 5 of this draft coming up, I don't know that they're coming in as a top 16 dynasty quarterback for me. So I mean, yeah, I would much rather just try to pivot out one of those picks and get a veteran quarterback that I know is actually going to produce instead of taking the upside swing when we're looking at both of these guys as probably more prototypical pocket passer quarterbacks that don't have as much rushing upside to really be a difference maker in this type of a shallow format. And I can probably trade a 201 or a 202 if I really wanted to try to get into a different veteran quarterback. If that's even a need for this team, we don't really see what the quarterback room looks like. But even if that was a need, I think I'd probably just go the veteran route with this type of a format. So it even kind of signifies for me more so that I probably want to do this trade back.
Yeah. Yep. So I didn't think I'd be on the 2-for-1 in the shallow format, but you got us there, Aloha. So good work. Have fun with those picks. I like having those 2 picks back to back too. Like I love having that advantage. John K, here we go. This is a before the NFL draft deal. 12-team start 9 superflex 0.5 PPR. It's a big caveat that we draft before the NFL draft, and their draft is in 2 weeks. So we don't know anything about landing spots yet. So team 1 gets Gabe's boy, GWilson, and 205. Trades away 102. So, Gabe, I'm going to start with you because, again, you've been a big supporter of GW. You said, hey, man, Devontae's coming to town. That's cool. That's going to be good things for Wilson. And lo and behold, it was. Who knows who their quarterback is or what that situation looks like. 102 for Garrett Wilson, 205. How do you break that down?
Dude, I mean, I'd have to see, right? But I think Garrett Wilson and the 102, it's going to be 102 over Garrett Wilson, right? 1-for-1. But I can't imagine that gap is that big, if you will. And then the 205, to the point that you guys have been mentioning all show, like the class is deep towards where you're going to get a nice asset at that 205 spot, right? I know, again, the 102, Cam Ward, maybe Tet. I mean, I like Garrett Wilson, and I do think that there's a lot of positives coming. Aaron Rodgers finally out of the way. I don't think it can get much worse. I mean, let me knock on wood over here, but I don't think it can get much worse than what we had in New York with Aaron Rodgers. I mean, it was very ugly, as you guys know. Obviously, Devontae Adams now leaving too. Again, it just leaves Garrett Wilson as the wide receiver one again in New York, and I do think they're going to obviously get, I think, a better upgrade than what Aaron Rodgers was this year. And so for that reason, man, I think I can do a lot with the 102, but I do think that this is a really good price to get Garrett Wilson, and you get a pick later in the draft as well, just to kind of backfill with anything. Because again, 102, you're probably going to use that on either a quarterback or a wide receiver. And if you're going to hope and pray that Tet becomes Garrett Wilson, I'll just take Garrett Wilson, because sometimes the devil that you know, man, is better than the devil you don't. And I'll just take the 205 as a consolidation piece as well.
Yep. I'm just looking at startup ADP right now, man. Like Garrett Wilson, middle of the third, 102. Of course, after Bucky Irving, but top of the fourth. JB's tiers, he has Garrett Wilson over the 102 slightly, but again, that's just in that kind of messy middle range where choose your favorite, choose your fighter. I mean, Cody, like we're looking at 102. Again, I'm still of the opinion, once these quarterbacks get, if and when they get top 5 NFL draft capital, top 6 NFL draft capital, whatever that looks like, someone could probably be trading up to the Raiders spot now. Maybe they want a quarterback. I don't think we're going to be able to help ourselves, and these quarterbacks are going to be steamed up. I don't know about all the way up to 102, but I know there's people out there that are saying, I am not taking a running back at 101 or 102. I'm just going to lean quarterback. Like I just can't do it. I can't get behind the running back. How do you feel about 102, trade out of that to get into Garrett Wilson in the 205?
Yeah, back to the last trade, kind of, and we were mentioning, like, I don't know if these quarterbacks, even if they get the draft capital, are coming in as top 16 quarterbacks. I can't get myself to try to force those guys into a 101, 102, 103 spot, even if it is super flex. I get the need, but I'd rather just try to solve the quarterback position somewhere else within either draft capital or players on my roster. I would try to do something else rather than just leaning into these rookies as it looks right now. And if you're going to put the Garrett Wilson versus 102, I have Garrett Wilson. If we want to put a wide receiver there, I have Garrett Wilson currently ranked over Tet, and we're drafting before the NFL draft. So I don't even know if that, I might blow a 102 pick on Tet, and then after the draft, whenever he gets landing spots in draft capital, he's wide receiver 3, and we see that Matthew Golden rise up to wide receiver 1 in drafts. And so there's a little bit of risk there. You talk about maybe a little bit of flexibility with a 102, but we're drafting in 2 weeks. Like, what is your flexibility and how much you're able to grind a flexibility for 2 weeks? Even if you're talking post NFL draft, we're like 50 days away. So you better be absolutely grinding the dynasty trade market streets in your league if you're talking about quote unquote flexibility for 3-4 weeks here over the next couple of days. So this is a pretty easy one for me. I'll take the G Willie side. Now, you did say they were going to have a quarterback upgrade, and I don't know, because from what it seems like in the streets, they're saying they're either going to roll back Tyrod Taylor or they're going to bring in Justin Fields. And I would take Aaron Rodgers of last year. That offense really wasn't the problem for that Jets team. That defense fell apart for me personally. So I have some concerns still about the quarterback with G Willie for next year, but I'll still take the player that I know and Garrett Wilson over anything that this rookie draft is going to give me potentially at the 102, and you throw in a 205. So it's some nice free stuff for me.
Yeah. I think, like I said, the pre-NFL draft of it all, I agree, Cody. Like that flexibility, that's waning. You got to start making some moves now if you're going to try to use that card. I'm just going to take G-Dub. I'll take the guy that I know. Man, imagine a Jameis Winston in New York. That'd be fun, right? Just having him on the front page of the New York Times. Come on. But yeah, John, I'll take GWill. I'll take the 205. I'll take what falls to me. Let someone else take that early shot at the 102, and then see how that all shakes out after the draft. Good luck. Okay, we already did that one. That's great. Cam Frost, super flex, 12 team start 11, big quarterback scoring. You got 0.5 PPR, 1.5 tight end premium, 0.5 point per first down rushing, I assume, possibly receiving, and a 0.1 point per carry. So a little bit of boosted scoring everywhere. This team's got Josh Allen. They now have Purdy and backups. They got trash for running backs. They got Nabers, Rome, Kirk, and Cans. They got Bowers and Joku and Cans. 101, 104, 107, 112, 21, 23. So team on the rise has some picks to work with. First trade here. We send away Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy, and the 301. We get back Brock Purdy, 107, and a 2026 second round pick. So I'm going to set the table here for you, Cody. You got Brock Purdy, lost seemingly everyone on San Francisco is going elsewhere. I guess there's no one's going to be there. It's going to be Purdy and trash cans, mannequins with arms. We'll just forget about CMC. We'll forget about, I guess, Jennings and everything that's happened there. But anyways, Michael Penix, JJ McCarthy on the other side. I'm in a startup right now. All of these quarterbacks went in the same round. So I know there's going to be people there who feel convicted one way or the other, Penix, JJ, or Purdy. I'm personally cool to cross off one of those quarterbacks with the other, but if I had to choose, I'm taking Purdy. 107, I'm taking one of those quarterbacks over the 107, knowing how the community feels on JJ and Penix. And again, just kind of, I would rather use that pick now, get into a Penix or a McCarthy versus pray that what a Shador falls. Because like you said, Cody, I don't think they're falling in the top 16 plus quarterback range anyways. So I'd rather stay with Penix and McCarthy. And then you give me a 2026 second over a 301. That's obviously an upgrade, but how much is that worth? I think in a vacuum, I'm taking Penix, McCarthy in the 301. But on this team, they have Josh Allen, Purdy, like they had JJ and Penix. You kind of have a bit of a log jam at quarterback. I think in that case, I can definitely get behind getting the pick, getting Purdy, and then upgrading the second. But Cody, I want to know, how do you feel on this one?
Yeah, looking at it for me personally, you talk about the conviction between these three quarterbacks that are probably within the same clump or tier. I'm going to take Purdy. I think he has a little bit more rushing side that is underappreciated, especially for the format that looks like it's going to have a little bit of juice to a rushing quarterback format comparatively to a Penix or McCarthy. But you did have three starters, or at least three starters as it looks like. I don't know. People keep trying to send Aaron Rodgers to Minnesota to apparently start over JJ McCarthy in the NFL media world right now, which I don't really understand. But you are trading away your two locked in, what I would consider starting quarterbacks, for a single one upgrade in Brock Purdy. But I would agree, you can probably wash out a one for one of the quarterbacks for one of the quarterbacks. And then you're talking about the 107 and the 2, or let's say it's just JJ McCarthy and the 301. It's tough for me because I typically like to have, it is a little bit of trading from excess to send away, let's just call it your third quarterback for a 107. But man, I like having a third starting quarterback and not just playing I hope one of my backups actually hits in the season whenever one of my quarterbacks potentially goes down. I think I am actually going to go over to the Penix and McCarthy side, and it's tough because I don't like those guys personally just on conviction over Brock Purdy. But I think it's enough for me that I probably just would have held out and stayed with a Penix and McCarthy. But I don't think this is bad either way. I still like the 107 and the 2 much more than the flop of a 301 this year. So I think it's close, but I probably just would have stuck and looked for something else.
Okay. Man.
Come on.
Ooh, you guys. All right. I agree. I do think that Purdy, Penix, and McCarthy are somewhat clumped together. I do have Purdy above Penix and McCarthy, probably a couple spots too, right? I don't think it's like they're back to back, so I do think it's a couple spots. So I kind of saw this a little differently. I think for me, Penix, I saw it as Penix in the 301 for Brock Purdy, probably pretty fair for me. Again, I don't know. I know that there's a lot of depth in this class, but I'd be willing to take the upgrade to Brock Purdy just because I believe more in San Francisco in that offense. And Kyle Shanahan, than I do believe with what Atlanta's doing out there, right? I mean, so for me, that's kind of where my mind went. And I know that Cody mentioned he likes to have a third quarterback right behind. I mean, Josh Allen and Brock Purdy is a pretty damn good, quarterback room, right? And what you can do, man, is we've talked about it. Having those seconds in your war chest, if you will, you can go and buy another starting quarterback, man, with a second, right? I mean, Stafford, Geno, some of these other guys, they probably cost you about a second. I mean, maybe a little bit more, right? Let's say a little bit more, but for the most part, like it's at least in somewhat of the conversation. And so I personally would rather do something like that and then use that 107. He mentions that he has no running backs, right? Like he has no running backs and his wide receiver room isn't that deep either. I personally feel like you need the depth. You need to start using some of these, that 107 specifically, like for a positional player. And I do think that sometimes getting off of the guys who are in that flat tier, if you will, because I do think Penix and JJ McCarthy are kind of the same guy. I think there's something that's worth kind of getting a small upgrade at the quarterback position and then being able to use that first to actually get a positional player.
I mean, I can't disagree with you there. You mentioned Geno Smith and all that. I mean, I was looking at the Dynasty Daddy trade database here a little earlier. I'll try and zoom in if I can, but it's not working for me. So anyway, I got Geno pulled up. So looking at some deals here. Let me just do this. Bang. Sure. We got Rashid Rice and Geno for 3 firsts and a third. Wow. But aside from that, a lot of Geno for a second, Geno for a 26 first. Interesting. Geno for a second, Geno for a second, Geno and a second for Demont. So a lot of Geno seconds, using a second with Geno. So yeah, I agree. You could definitely use that second. And like you've said, Gabe, we've spent seconds on worse,
Yeah. I mean, and I just feel like week to week, and maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, man, but let's say JJ McCarthy and Penix both are the starters, which is what we're expecting right now. Again, it's March, right? So this is what we're expecting for them both to be the starters of their respective teams this upcoming year. Who do you know to start, man, week to week? Like, I just feel like it's going to be an even bigger of a headache week to week knowing who to start, because I believe, again, knowing what I know now, right now, March, it's going to be a toss-up, man. I think there's going to be weeks where Penix outscores JJ McCarthy. There's going to be weeks where JJ McCarthy outscores Michael Penix. And then you're just going to be in this rotating door of like, damn, who do I start week to week? Where I know, like, I'm just going to start Brock Purdy over whatever I can get with the second. But if I need a third quarterback, I'm ready to buy one with the picks that I have. And I can get a positional player with that 107. Yeah. And to Cody's point earlier, a pretty good positional player too.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, 107 is definitely a pick that I want in this class. Again, like it just kind of falls after that, 104-ish cutoff that we see right now, where I'll take whatever falls. And 107 is a great spot to do that at. And I agree, Gabe. I think having both Penix and JJ behind Josh Allen, it's only going to cause you some headaches in season. My only pushback would be, do I have to solve that today? And is there an opportunity as we get through the offseason, as we get to preseason, and maybe JJ is named the starter, maybe Penix is looking good? Like, I think there's probably more runway for this team for these guys to pick up maybe a better deal. But if you want to move in for a rookie, you kind of got to do it now, because again, the draft is coming up soon. I think on this team, if I had Allen, Penix, JJ, and backups, I kind of want to choose a lane. I either want to do what Cam Frost did, send away some guys, get us a guy that I can trust, and then build out with the backups to fill in as I need, or have JJ and Penix try to just lose some of those backup quarterback bodies and add more running back bodies, because clearly we're working with cans on this team, right? So I want as many cans as I can in that case. So I don't mind the thought process. Is it a deal you had to do today? Probably not. But again, on your team, I see why you did it. You need to address the wide receiver room somehow here as well. Having 107 is a great way to do that. So I'm going that first deal. I want to give the second deal really quick, though. Anthony Richardson and Michael Pittman being sent away for a 27 first and 412. I traded ARich for a 27 first in season. Felt pretty good about that. I think I traded it to in one of our leagues, Gabe. Yep, I remember that one. Pittman for 412. I'm going to take Pittman, but how do we feel here? Are we just out on ARich? Are we just kicking it with Pittman and saying whatever? Gabe, I think I know your answer.
Yeah, let's pass it to Cody first. I want to see what Cody thinks about this.
I
Come on, Cody, take us home here. Take us home.
I just don't know about 27 first yet. People want to put Jeremiah Smith to every single 27 first. The 412 is absolutely meaningless. I might actually rather have Fab over the next 2 years. Give me like $5 of Fab, and I'd probably take that over 412. There is upside that still exists with Anthony Richardson, but obviously the downside is that he's benched by week 3 and he never plays again in the league. I'm going to take the upside swing, though. Give me Pittman and ARich. I know Pittman's probably worth I don't even know if you could pull a first for Pittman anymore with the seasons that he's put together over the last couple of years, and then ARich, but I just don't give a single damn about a 27 first yet at this point. And all of you people out here are like, oh yeah, it's going to be an early 27 first. Okay. Yeah. Predict the next election cycle for me then, because that is so far out in the future. You don't even know if the league is going to exist anymore. Give me the players over any 27 first. So I'll just roll with an upside chance that ARich actually bounces back and learns how to be an actual professional quarterback and human being. It doesn't tap out in an actual game, which we've never seen before. It's not a great bet, but I'd rather that over anything that I'm trying to project in 3 years out.
All right, Gabe, the floor is yours, buddy.
I mean, I can't say anything differently to the point that both of you guys have made. I mean, 27 first, we have established that it is a real year, right? We have established that it is a real year. So at least that's a plus. But man, to wait, I mean, you can always buy those picks later on. Like to Cody's point, I'm just willing to take the swing right now. I'm not a believer in Anthony Richardson by any stretch, but I mean, I like Michael Pittman, and hopefully Shane Steichen and them can figure something out with this Colts team. I mean, hopefully they can figure something out. So I'll take Michael Pittman and Anthony Richardson. But yeah, not much else that I could say there outside of what Cody already had mentioned.
Well, Gabe, let me put your words back in your mouth here. So, I mean, we have a second that we can use in season. I mean, I feel like a 27 first, I can do even more with that. And if I don't need to solve my quarterback 3, because I guess ARich would have been your quarterback 3, right?
Yeah.
But I don't have to. And again, if you had Allen, JJ, Penix, and ARich, you got to do something there. So all good. But I mean, hey man, you can do a lot with that one, that 27 first. I mean, I don't know, but yeah, I mean, pure value. I guess I'll take the shot on ARich and Pittman, turn it around somehow, and just go against the community bias at this point. But I mean, you have to do this with a plan, right? If you're doing this, I'm not holding that first for the hopes that it becomes Jeremiah Smith. I'm using that in some way, shape, or fashion to improve my team more than what I think ARich and Pittman can do. So what that looks like in your league, TBD. I guess I'll take ARich and Pittman though.
Yeah.
Team is being just worn down to the studs, though. Like, this is just a team that's going all youth build. So, like, I don't hate the entire process of everything cumulatively coming together. I just think purely on the value of each individual trade. I'd probably go the other side, but I understand why it's all done.
Yeah. I mean, you talk about a quarterback 3 as well. Like, I'm okay having ARich that is a QB 3. You know, that's the upside. That's the hopefully something that people can still buy into. If I have to start him, he could be quarterback, a top 5 quarterback on the week, just based on how he plays, whatever. Yep. But we got Big Diaz in a startup with me. He got a compliment on how good his startup was this morning, so he's feeling good. So let's see if that continues. And a 12-team start 11 Superflex PPR 2 tight end premium with a 0.175, or sorry, start 2 tight ends 0.175 tight end premium. Big play scoring. We got Jaden Daniels, Stafford, and Cans. We got Achane and Cans. Pittman, that man, Sutton, Keon Coleman, Pop Douglas, and Cans, McBride, and Njoku Ingram, 1-4, 1-5, 1-8, 109, 112, 2-4, 2-8, bunch of picks, clearly needing wide receiver addressed on this team. So sends away 104, 105, and 204 to get Brian Thomas and 206. I'm going to tell you guys for free, 204 to 206. Historically, 205 is around where that cutoff is, so you could be on the outside looking in. In this class, I'll let you take the pick at 204 if I can move back to 206 and get something else that I want. I like what I can get in this class, but I think I'm happily consolidating 104 and 105 to get into Brian Thomas Jr. Give me the later second, and I'll figure it out. Gabe, on to you, my friend. How do you feel?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I agree with you. I definitely am more than happy to consolidate the 104 and 105 into Brian Thomas Jr. The only thing that I will say, again, I want the Brian Thomas Jr. side for sure, but this team needs a lot. There's a lot of holes, you know what I mean? And then that's at both the running back position and at the wide receiver position. So I can't fault anybody, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I can't fault anybody for wanting to build out some depth with the 104 and 105. But that being said, I will take Brian Thomas Jr. Yeah. Cody.
I don't have anything different. This team is going to need a lot of work. Obviously, you have the picks to supplement it, but even with, I mean, if you keep doing 2 pick tier ups, it's going to
You're not going to have much.
It's still going to need a lot of work to build out a full 11 starter Superflex league and in a 2 tight end league as well. So you're going to be pretty heavily based there. You do have a good tight end room. That's probably where you put most of your capital here. But even with that, you're still going to need a good bit of work. The 204 to the 206 today is absolutely negligible to me. So yeah, I mean, I will send away the 104, 105 for Brian Thomas. I think that is a win, but we're still going to need to do a little bit more work here, and we're going to need to be a little bit creative with how we use the rest of these assets. Even though you do have a plethora of them, they're starting to get to back end first, and we'll see what the hit rate is with those over the next couple of years.
Sure.
Oh yeah, I mean, even like to your point, his quarterback situation too. Like Jaden Daniels is great, but then you got Stafford, which is fine. I mean, it's fine, but it's just there's a lot of holes, man, on this team. So whenever there's a lot of holes on a roster, man, I don't love consolidating multiple pieces into one, right? But again, just for the pure sake of like Brian being that it's Brian Thomas Jr., like I'll lean that side for sure.
Yeah. And Gabe, I'll stick with you here really quick. Like, does the fact that Diaz has 108, 109, 112, and a slew of picks behind it, does that make it easier to make a deal like this? Or would you kind of go the other way if you had that many picks?
I mean, not really, because if we really sat here and like kind of counted it out, so Jaden Daniels, Stafford 2, Achane 3, Pittman, good God, if you have to start Pittman week to week, I mean, who knows, right? 4, Sutton 5, Keon Coleman, 6, McBride and Njoku 7, 8, Ingram 9, and Brian Thomas Jr. now 10. You know, like these are guys that you're just have in your lineup right now. So 8, 9, 12, like these are guys that you're going to be plugging and playing week to week in your lineup, and you just don't know what you're going to be getting, man. So I feel like I would rather, if it were me, I would probably move the picks, but try to get more of a 1-for-1 rather than a 1 or a 2-for-1, right? Just because, again, this team just has so many holes right now, man. Like you need to do something with those picks, and you do have a lot of them. But to Cody's point, like, if you keep doing 2-for-1s, that war chest is going to run dry very, very fast.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Now, let me push back from like a roster construction perspective, right? So when I have like a Josh Allen, a Jaden Daniels, Jalen Hurts, a Lamar Jackson, when I have a guy of that caliber, when I have my quarterback too, like I'm not as obsessed as I was before about getting 2 studs. Like I'm fine kind of playing the little dirtier range, especially like the Stafford, Geno, like that kind of range of quarterback. So he's done that with Jaden Daniels and Stafford. He's going to be able to navigate that 8, 9, 12. If there is a secondary quarterback he wants to take a shot on in the draft, or he wants to trade out and get one, he could do that. He can figure that out. But I mean, I'm looking at a 2 tight end, 175. I don't know if Warren or Loveland fall to the 1-8 there, but I have a feeling that like an Ibuka, a Matthew Golden, a Caleb Johnson, maybe even a Quinshon, like some guys are going to be falling here. And I mean, this might be the hopium talking, right? But we identified about 10 assets if Ingram gets a job, which I assume he will.
He should. He
should. But I mean, I feel like Diaz will be able to fill that out. And knowing Diaz, he probably has an extra first in the back pocket or a way to get an extra first there. I do feel like Diaz and how he builds and how he plays, he has the tight end advantage in McBride. He has enough to kind of fill out there. Like, I think he'll be able to piece it together. But I agree, this isn't a team where I'm obsessed about doing 2-for-1s, 3-for-1s to try to consolidate, because you could be left holding the bag there with reduced flexibility if you can't actually do anything with the guys that you've consolidated for. Roundabout way of saying, give me Brian Thomas, but I agree. We got to be kind of careful on these teams of over consolidating and having a plan when you do it.
Yeah. And I mean, I mentioned 10 starters, and Cody, you can correct me if I'm wrong here, but like some of the guys that I mentioned, you're not excited about starting week to week, right? I mean, so that's the other thing too, right? It's one, sure, he can fill out a roster with these picks, right? He can definitely fill out a roster with these picks. It doesn't mean it's going to be a good roster, and it's not going to be very deep either. So it's going to be very shallow. Injuries happen, man, unfortunately, despite us not wanting them to happen. But so if you kind of include all of that, I don't know, man. It's a very risky game.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very risky game.
Looking at it, this is just one I'd rather go into this season looking at it like I'm trying to tank this thing down to the bottom, build around the 4 to 5 assets that are premium here. I guess maybe like 5 or 6 now. But yeah, whenever I'm starting Keon Coleman, Pop Douglas, and Cans in my flex, even if you do backfill with all these 8, 9, 12s, it's just typically not how I like to do it, with probably like a 50% hit rate once you get past that 104, 105 in terms of just rookies actually being guys that you would like to plug into a starting lineup week to week. I'd probably rather just tank this one down. So I'm not even trying to consolidate too much into this year because I don't really have the hope of this team going over the edge in year 1. So if I could even push some of this stuff out to 26 further, we don't see what those picks are like in this breakdown right now. But I'd probably start looking to push more stuff into that and then build around a really good young core here as I'm starting to build up.
Yeah. Could be a glass cannon for sure. I like to play a little risky though. I love it, Diaz. Go do your thing. You let us know in the comments. 12 teams start 11. You got some studs, you got some depth concerns, and again, 12 by 11. What is depth? But what are you doing? Are you consolidating here for Brian Thomas Jr.? You taking the picks and the upgrade in the second? Let us know below, please. Please, because we need direction. We need adult supervision. Let's end with Brian Thomas Jr. again on a old Shane Says trade. 12 teams, start 11, super flex. We got some boosted scoring here for a PPC, some point per carry, some big play bonuses as well. I think, yes, a 2.0 tight end premium total. Shane sends away Odunze, Legette, and 107, trade into Brian Thomas Jr. and the 309. So we don't have any team context here. Odunze just feels like captain ADV when I'm trying to assess it. Like, yeah, I like the idea of Odunze, but I can't get behind it until I see it. And there's a lot of things around Odunze that have to go right as well. Legette, love the way he talks. I like the idea of eating raccoon for Thanksgiving, but TBD on a dynasty asset. I did just draft him in a startup though, so we'll see how that goes. 107, we've talked about it. Brian Thomas, we've talked about it. 309, it's not a 206, but it's still a pick in this draft. Cody, 12 team start 11, no other team context. BTJ and 309 or Odunze, Legette and 107.
The depth makes me question it a little bit more, being the 12 team start 11, but really what's the difference between the 12 team start 11 and 12 team start 10 that I would consider standard? It's not too much whenever you're just looking at a lineup league. The Odunze and the 107, I feel like, is a more than fair price for Brian Thomas Jr. to try to up tier yourself into that range. And then you're looking, is the delta between that and then Legette and a 309? Obviously, I'd rather take the high draft capital Legette and see if you can actually turn it into being a meaningful contributor to my fantasy team. I don't think the delta is that different, though, which sounds terrible to say about Legette after only 1 year. But I think I'm just going to go into the guy that's probably up there in most people's wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6 range. And I'll probably just consolidate all of this into a Brian Thomas. We could see, maybe if the roster was a little bit more shallow and a little bit more barren, that I wouldn't want to consolidate all of this into a Brian Thomas. But right now, just off the surface base, yeah, I'll just take the guy who's going to be paired up with T-Law. We'll see what the offense does with Cohen going forward, but it feels like a lot of hope going into the Sen side, and I'll just take what I know in BTJ.
All right, Gabe, let us know.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
Yeah, no, I mean, I think Brian Thomas Jr., man, is one of those guys. He's a difference maker, right? He's definitely a difference maker. And so I agree with what you had mentioned as far as like Odunze. We like the idea of Odunze for sure, but we just haven't seen it, man. And right now, knowing how high this community has shot Brian Thomas Jr. up, especially with all of the releases that the Jags have done, clearly they're showing their direction, right? And I want a part of that. And so therefore I would want to take Brian Thomas Jr. But to Cody's point, like without any context of the team, like if it was definitely like kind of a Diaz team where we didn't have a lot of depth, I would be okay with kind of keeping the 3-for-1. But knowing how Shane dynasties, I'm going to imagine that there is a damn good team on the other side of this. And so I'm going to be happy to do the 3-for-1 and give me the elite asset, the elite difference maker.
Shane had an excellent YouTube show this week where he broke down wide receivers and how they score in their rookie season and how that correlates to after season production. And players like Brian Thomas Jr. that fall in a certain point per game range, a high end echelon of point per game, they have many seasons where they are wide receiver 1 more often than not, wide receiver 2. If you haven't watched it, go check it out. Shane actually speaks on numbers, which was awesome. That was a great show. I know why Shane is doing this, because he values Brian Thomas Jr. in that range of wide receiver where they show out so well in their rookie season. They score so well that just based on history, Brian Thomas Jr. is going to be closer to the Malik Nabers, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson range than he is the Rome Odunze, Jordan Addison, Devontae Smith range. It's going to be a guy that I know Shane is willing to consolidate in now on the bet that it's only going to get better from here. I can't fault him there in a 12-by-11 on a team where if I don't have needs, I'm looking for something to do with the 107. I'm trying to add Legette into a deal to clear up a roster spot, and I can go from Odunze up to BTJ. I think I'm going to do that. You kick me back to 309. I'll shake your hand. We'll move on. I'm going to take Brian Thomas Jr. I can't hate it from either side. It's a fair deal. But again, just how I want a dynasty, I'm becoming more and more of a feast or famine wide receiver player in these, I'll call it shallower formats, like start 11 or lower. I just want to get up to a certain range, or I'll play the field and let other people kind of let their biases choose it. So I'll take BTJ. Any other thoughts on this deal?
If I could just liquidate out, what could I liquidate a Rome Odunze for? Probably something in around a 107 range. I feel like you could probably pull out of a Rome Odunze. What could I pull out of a Legette? Maybe a second. So you're looking at like maybe a 107, 108, and a 2 for Brian Thomas. And even there, I don't think it's bad even on the receive or on the send side that you're getting this kind of tier down range and you get a little bit more hopeful. But yeah, just with what we know and on surface level, I think I'm going to stick with the upside high shot wide receiver and BTJ, but I can understand that. I don't think it's a bad deal either way, but lean would definitely be to Shane.
Yeah. And as someone who is currently in the startup, I can tell you a second for Legette, something has to happen to get there. Again, I feel like something has to happen for a lot of the things that Shane sent away in that deal. So I like that deal. I like this show. This is fun. We did a three-person show. I didn't see any internet issues. That's awesome. I did spill water all over myself and all over my keyboard and everything. So we made it. We did it. DD Fantasy Football, thank you so much for tuning in. Gabe, Cody, anything fun happening this weekend for y'all? What's up? Good, Gabe, what are you doing?
Man, what am I doing this week? Well, first, I'm glad that you didn't have like an electrical shortage with your water spill over there. Yeah, right. But no, man, this weekend we don't have much going on. We're just going to be hanging out and I think we're about to go grab some breakfast since it's still early over here. But other than that, it should be a pretty relaxing weekend over here, thankfully.
Nice. What about you, Cody?
Yeah, we got UFC tonight, probably grinding some more wide receiver film tape, looking at some Isaiah Nayor, some Isaac Tesla from the combine. We'll see. It's rookie draft season, dynasty season never stops. Maybe picking up an orphan today too, so we might have some stuff that we can churn and burn through a new roster. So dynasty season never stops. NFL season never stops. We get more news out every single day. We got to adjust, and that's what we're doing here. We do it on the DD Fantasy Football feed every single day. We've even got a live YouTube show going on right now where they're doing a draft right now as we're recording. So go back and listen to that one if you haven't listened to that yet, and keep sticking around for the DD Fantasy Football feed.
Definitely, man. It's a fun time. We're pivoting post-combine here. Breaking down the Geno news, hot off the presses too. We had a Geno deal to discuss. So what are you doing with your picks, right? Now is the time. I held on to a lot of my first, those 101s, they weren't moving. But now that we're post-combine, I've been active trying to send some things out. So hit us in the comments. What are you doing with your first, your seconds? How are you navigating post-combine? What are you doing with Geno? And if you want to continue this conversation, DDFFB, head on over ddfantasyfootball.com. Use code TRADEGOAT. Links in the description below. Patreon.com/allgas. Underdog code allgas. Get your special pick up to $1K in bonus cash. Boys, thank you so much. Stick around for everything we got going on at DDFFB, and we out of this thing. Peace.